Good morning to all the third year founding students. So this is Dr. Sunil Kumar. So let's continue our discussion on chemotherapy. So in the last class, I was discussing about general principles of chemotherapy. That is selection of an antimicrobial agent. So what are the points that has to be considered while selecting an antibiotic? Means what points you should keep in your mind before prescribing an antibiotic. Okay, I think some few points we discussed. So like first one, clinical evaluation of probable etiology. Okay, so before selecting an antimicrobial agent or antibiotic, first you should confirm what type of infection the patient is having. Okay, and you should also know whether your antibiotic is useful for that infection, whether that infectious organism is susceptible to that antibiotic or not, that you have to confirm. So I have given an example for in case of common cold. In case of common cold, many individuals will have fever. Okay, and if you use antibiotics in fever due to a common cold, which are mainly due to virus, Okay, so antibiotics are ineffective on virus. So hence, if a person is having a fever and that fever is due to common cold or due to some viral infection, and in that case, if you keep on prescribing antibiotics, that antibiotics use is not justified. Okay, the bottom line is very simple. So in case of fever and common cold due to viruses, okay, so you should not go for antibiotic. And as I said the same thing, whatever we are discussing, whatever I am mentioning right now, so that is not applicable in the current society. It is restricted to books itself. So why? Because we are seeing physicians or doctors, they are blindly prescribing antibiotics by ignoring the problems related to antibiotics. One of the major problem is resistance. Okay, if you unnecessarily expose a broad spectrum antibiotic, definitely one problem is that broad spectrum antibiotic, which is going to kill the dangerous one, that will also kill your friendly bacteria present in your GIT. Okay, that results in super infection, but I will come to that. And another problem is when you are frequently exposing a microorganism to an antibiotic instead of leaving it to your immune system. Okay, in case of minor infections, you leave it to your immune system. Your immune system will take care of that problem. But instead, if you are exposing to an antibiotic, definitely the antibiotic initially it will be sensitive, but later it becomes insensitive. It won't be destroyed or it won't be inhibited by that antibiotic, and that problem is a dangerous problem which is causing a worldwide problem that is called bacterial resistance. Okay, so these two problems are very dangerous and they, they should be paid much attention. But unfortunately, uh, physicians, they are worried about curation. They want to cure the patient as early as possible. Okay, so and also even the current society, individuals do not have enough patience to to wait until the infection gets cured. Okay, for mild and moderate infection, immediately they rush to a physician and they insist the physician to prescribe antibiotics. So that is what happening in the current society. That is one thing we discussed. So first you evaluate the probable etiology, know the cause, know the infection, whether it is a bacterial infection, viral infection, fungal infection, protozoal infection, then you have to go for antibiotic. Okay. And next one is identification of microorganism. Even if you confirm that the infection is a bacterial infection, you should know what type of bacteria it is. For example, if the infection is gram negative, okay, gram negative bacterial infection, and if you are not aware of that particular subtype of bacterial infection which is gram negative, and you are keep on prescribing antibiotics like penicillin which are effective only on gram positive, then the treatment is not a successful one. Okay, so in case of bacterial infection, if you confirm it, try to know what type of bacteria it is, whether it is a spirochete, whether it is acid fast bacteria, whether it is a gram positive bacteria, whether it is a gram positive, gram negative bacteria. Have a, I mean to say that, diagnose it properly, and after that you give specific antibiotic which is going to act on the specific bacteria. Okay, is it clear? So that is one thing. And third one, I told you age of the patient. Okay, I discussed about age of the patient. Age is very very essential, because antibiotics will have different effects in can produce different side effects in different age groups. For example, I mentioned in neonates, in newborn babies, chloramphenicol causes gray baby syndrome. Okay, because chloramphenicol metabolic pathway is not fully developed in I mean to say that in babies, that glucuronic acid pathway is not fully metabolized in babies. That's why that chloramphenicol will not be metabolized properly, and that will result in severe respiratory distress, abdominal swelling. Okay, that greenish coloration of the skin, lethargy, stools will be bluish green. Okay, so that is the problem. Okay, and some antibiotics will cause problem in the elderly. For example, I think I have quoted an example of aminoglycoside antibiotics that will be discussed in detail. So that is streptomycin, amikacin, kanamycin, gentamicin. They will cause severe adverse drug reaction in elderly, and they mainly cause damage to the nephron. They cause kidney damage. Okay, so that's why age has to be considered. Okay, let me share this slide and we will continue our discussion. Just a minute. Yeah, I hope this is quite visible to everyone. Yeah. So you can see here, this is what clinical evaluation of probable etiology. First point. Just a minute. Yeah. So this is clinical evaluation of probable etiology, what we discussed. Next, identification of causative microorganism. Then we discussed age of the patient, that is also very important. And pregnancy and neonatal period also we discussed. So definitely some antibiotics are very dangerous in pregnancy, and some antibiotics are very safe in pregnancy, because certain antibiotics can reach the, for example, metronidazole, it is very dangerous in pregnancy. Tetracycline, it is very dangerous in pregnancy. It can cross the placenta and it can damage the fetus. Okay, that's why uh, avoid those antibiotics. And if there is a compulsion to use antibiotics in pregnancy, so you have to use safer antibiotics. Now, what are the safer antibiotics? I think I mentioned penicillins, cephalosporins, erythromycin, lincomycin, and sulfonamides. They are very safer in pregnancy. Okay, and they can be safely used in pregnancy and neonatal period. Am I right? Okay, so that is the fourth one. Fifth one is severity of the disease. See, unless and until the condition is severe, you are not supposed to use antibiotic. Let me quote a simple example. Suppose a patient is suffering from mild bacillary dysentery, mild, not severe bacillary dysentery, mild bacillary dysentery. Okay. So first, in case of mild bacillary dysentery, it is not reasonable to go for antibiotic. So the first thing what we have to do is, whatever the fluid that is lost through diarrhea, that has to be restored. Okay. Once you restore the ions that are lost through diarrhea, so that will be enough. That will be sufficient. Okay. You maintain dietary restriction, and you restore the fluids which has been lost through diarrhea. Okay, and that will be done especially by oral rehydration salt. Okay, I think we know ORS, oral rehydration salt. ORS is sufficient. Okay, so just go for oral rehydration salt. In case of mild dysentery, wait. You have to wait. If the diarrheal episode continues, if the severity of the diarrhea further increases, if the diarrhea becomes further severe, then you can go for antibiotics like cotrimoxazole, okay, ampicillin, which is a derivative of penicillin, and fluoroquinolones, that is ciprofloxacin and related antibiotic. Cotrimoxazole is nothing but it is a combination of sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim. Okay, you will come to know each and every antibiotic when I discuss about individual antibiotics. So what I'm saying is, when the unless and until the condition is severe, don't go for antibiotics. In case of mild bacillary dysentery, which is cured with ORS or oral rehydration therapy, where the replacement of salt is sufficient to stop the diarrhea, then why you should go for antibiotics? Okay, that is severity of the disease. Okay, next. Next is sixth one, nature of the drug. Even in antibiotics, you have two varieties. One is bacteriostatic and bactericidal agents. Okay, so you have to use these drugs very carefully. Okay, bacteriostatic means it is not going to completely kill the microorganism. It is going to inhibit the multiplication of microorganism. It is going to inhibit the multiplication or growth of bacteria. Okay, so you can see here bacteriostatic are those which act by inhibiting the growth of bacteria, inhibiting the growth of bacteria. Okay, so which act by inhibiting the growth of bacteria. Yeah, yeah. And bactericidal are much more potent. So you can see here bactericidal agents are those. Just a minute. So bactericidal agents are those which are going to kill the bacteria, which are going to kill the bacteria. Okay, so bacteriostatic antibiotic means it is going to inhibit the growth and multiplication. Okay, so in simple language, it will inhibit the multiplication of bacteria and it will keep the bacterial count to such a low level such that your immune system will take care of that low count. Okay, suppose there are 1,000 bacteria, for example. So, for example, if the infection has started, okay, in your body there are around 100 bacteria. Let assume 100 bacteria. If 100 bacteria multiply to 1,000, then you may have a serious infection. But when you use bacteriostatic antibiotic, what bacteriostatic antibiotic will do? It will act on those 100 bacteria and it will prevent the multiplication of the bacteria. Those 100 bacteria will not further multiply, so that the count of the bacteria remains 100, remains low, and that will be taken care by your immune system. That will be taken care by your immune system. Okay, so keeping the bacteria in low count by inhibiting their growth and multiplication will be done by bacteriostatic antibiotic. Okay, and examples of bacteriostatic antibiotics I have quoted here: sulfonamides, nitrofurans, erythromycin, tetracyclines, chloramphenicol. All these are bacteriostatic antibiotics. And bactericidal antibiotics, which are going to kill the microorganism, okay, kill the bacteria. They are very potent. They will kill the bacteria. Okay, and here examples: penicillins, aminoglycosides, rifampin, cephalosporins, cotrimoxazole, and metronidazole. And they are used to treat even carriers or spores. Okay, whenever any bacteria will die, it will produce a reproductive cell, and that reproductive cell will have a very thick cell wall, and that is very difficult for a I mean to say that can resist to any temperature. That can resist to any temperature. Okay, whenever some bacteria, whenever they die, they will generate spores, a reproductive cell produced by the bacteria, and that reproductive cell which is produced by the bacteria when it is going to die, that will have a very thick cell wall, and that is very difficult to inhibit. Okay, many drugs will fail to kill the spores. Okay, so even bacteriostatic antibiotics, which I mentioned, they are ineffective on spores. But if there is a sporal infection, if the infection is very severe, if there are spores, if bacterial count has to be reduced, and that is not sufficient. Keeping the bacterial count is not sufficient because the bacteria is very dangerous. It is creating spores. Then it becomes necessary to kill the bacteria. It becomes necessary to kill the bacteria. So hence we are going to use, under those circumstances, you have to use bactericidal antibiotics. Bactericidal antibiotics like penicillins, aminoglycoside, rifampin or rifampicin, cephalosporins, protramoxazole, and metronidazole. So, okay. So when the infection is severe, when you want to kill the bacteria, when you want to kill the bacterial spores or carriers. Okay. So that is about bacteriostatic and bactericidal agents. So now why I have classified clearly, the reason is depending on the infection you have to plan. If the infection is mild to moderate, then go for bacteriostatic antibiotics. Okay. If the bacterial count, bacteria has not multiplied to an abnormal level, if the signs and symptoms are not that much severe, then you can start with bacteriostatic antibiotic. But when the infection becomes severe, when the signs and symptoms appear to be severe, then you have to go for bactericidal antibiotics. Depending on the severity of the infection, you have to select bacteriostatic in case of less severe infection and bactericidal agents in case of more severe infections. Okay, got it? So that is how you have to select the nature of the drug. Next, seventh point that has to be considered before selecting an antimicrobial agent, that is the major problem that I think in the introduction I have mentioned, that is possibility of drug resistance. This is the one of the major problem, possibility of drug resistance. Okay, so drug resistance is defined as it is defined as unresponsiveness of a microorganism. Microorganism will not respond, or microorganism will not effective to an antimicrobial agent, or microorganism will not be killed, microorganism will not be inhibited by a particular by a particular antimicrobial agent or antibiotic. Okay, or in simple language I can say that the antibiotic fails to act on the bacteria. The antibiotic fails to inhibit or kill the bacteria. So then we can say that the bacteria has gained resistance. The bacteria has gained resistance. So here you can see the definition. Drug resistance is nothing but refers to unresponsiveness of a microorganism to an antimicrobial agent. Unresponsiveness of an microorganism to an antimicrobial agent. Okay, so there are two types of resistance. Let me describe it. One is called as natural resistance. Natural resistance means some microorganisms are naturally resistant to certain microorganisms. Okay, sorry, some microorganisms are naturally resistant to certain antimicrobial agents. Okay, so some microbes or microorganisms are naturally resistant to certain antibiotics. Okay, for example, so let me quote one example. Here you can see, yeah. So, so penicillin G. Penicillin G is naturally resistant to gram-negative. Okay, so penicillin G does not enter into gram-negative bacteria. Okay, it is naturally resistant because the target site, the binding site to which penicillin G is going to bind, it is not present in gram-negative. Okay, it is present mainly in gram-positive. That's why penicillin G remains insensitive insensitive for many gram-negative bacteria. Means many gram-negative microorganisms or bacteria will remain unaffected by penicillin, because here you can see they lack metabolic process. Means many antibiotics, after entering into bacteria, they are converted into some active compound. They are metabolized into an active compound. That metabolic process may not be available in the bacteria or target site which is affected by the particular drug. Okay. So many microorganisms or bacteria, they want to bind to a target site on the bacteria, many antibiotics, they will kill the bacteria or they will inhibit the bacteria by binding to a particular target site. Like how we discussed, the drug will act on a particular cell when it is attached to a receptor. Okay, for example, adrenaline. Adrenaline binds to heart, especially if you have beta receptor and alpha receptor. Imagine, adrenaline binds to alpha and beta receptors on the heart. But if alpha and beta receptors are not at all available on the heart, can we expect adrenaline to bind to the heart? No. In the same manner, when the binding site for an antibiotic is not available on the bacteria, then it is naturally, bacteria remains naturally resistant to the antibiotic. Okay. So when an antibiotic doesn't have a binding site on a microorganism, then automatically microorganism remains resistant to that antibiotic. That is what we call it as natural resistance. For example, because they do not have a binding site or target site, and they may lack metabolic process. They don't have the metabolic process by which they are converted into active form inside the bacteria. Okay. So one example is gram-negative bacilli unaffected by penicillin G. And another wonderful example, Mycobacterium tuberculosis is insensitive to tetracyclines. Tetracycline does not show any effect on Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is going to cause a TB. Okay, so this is one of the problem. Okay, this is what happening, but this is not a significant problem. Let me tell you why. But here, if a particular antibiotic is naturally sensitive to a microorganism, sorry, if a particular antibiotic or if a particular, I mean to say that if a particular bacilli or bacteria remains resistant to a particular microorganism naturally, then that's not a big problem. Okay, if you know that penicillin G is not effective on gram-negative bacteria, okay, then you can go for other antibiotic. You can select other antibiotic. You can select fluoroquinolones. You can select tetracyclines, or you can select aminoglycoside. Okay, if if Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria is not uh, 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 effective by tetracycline, or tetracycline fails to kill Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria, then you can select another antibiotic. Instead of tetracycline, you can go for ciprofloxacin. Okay, okay, this is natural thing. But the problem starts when an antibiotic which is sensitive earlier. Please try to understand. Okay, when an antibiotic which is going to kill a particular bacteria, which is going to inhibit a particular bacteria, okay, which is when a bacteria is very sensitive to an antibiotic, okay, but when you use continuously over a period of time, that antibiotic which is that bacteria which is sensitive to a particular antibiotic, it becomes resistance, it gains resistance, it acquires resistance. Okay, that is very dangerous, and that is called as acquired resistance. This is a big clinical problem nowadays. Okay, acquired resistance is, here you can just observe, development of resistance by an organism. A bacteria will develop resistance which is sensitive before, which used to die when it is exposed to an antibiotic. A microorganism is going to die or inhibited when it is exposed to a particular microorganism. Over a period of time, it gains resistance, it acquires resistance, and it is not going to be affected uh, after you are going to expose that microorganism for a period of time. Now the bacteria has become stronger, and it is not going to be affected by antibiotic in any way. Okay, that is what we call it as acquired resistance. Okay, this is the major clinical problem. Okay, so development of resistance by an organism which is sensitive before due to the use of an antimicrobial agent over a period of time. Okay, the microorganism which is sensitive before to an antibiotic has gained resistance, and that is a major problem. Okay, so you can see here, gonococci quickly develops resistance to sulfonamides. Okay, so sulfonamides, when they are used in gonococci, it's a type of bacteria that is cocci, spherical bacteria. So when sulfonamides are used continuously in gonococcal infection, within 10 to 50 days, the gonococci which is used to be killed by sulfonamides, that gonococci remains unaffected when we after 15 days. It gains resistance. Okay. So then sulfonamides becomes useless. Then you have to go for other antibiotics. So that is the reason why in the market you have wide varieties of antibiotics. Why you have cephalosporins first generation, second, third, fourth, five generations. Okay, because of this problem resistance. Okay, when the bacteria gains resistance, you have to design another antibiotic so that that antibiotic can enter into the bacteria and that can kill the bacteria. Okay, and here you can see gonococcus quickly develops resistance to sulfonamide, but only slowly and low grade resistance to penicillin. Okay, so penicillin is quite effective because the gonococci develops slow and low grade resistance. Okay, it develops a slow and not complete resistance, a low grade resistance to penicillin. Okay, suppose penicillin is killing 100% gonococci. Okay, but when you use penicillin continuously for 2 to 3 months, after 3 months, what will happen? Penicillin will not be that much effective. Only penicillin efficacy, only 30 to 40% penicillin may be effective. Remaining 70% on the bacteria, on gonococci, penicillin remains ineffective because most of the bacteria has gained resistance. So this is the clinical problem, that is what we are facing right now. That is acquired resistance. Got it? Okay, now risk of toxicity. This is also a big problem. So as I told you, you should be very careful. Just yeah. So you should. I meant to say that there are many antibiotics which will cause serious toxicity. For example, tetracyclines causes fetal damage. It is going to cause damage to the fetus in pregnancy. Aminoglycoside antibiotics, they causes renal damage. Okay, fluoroquinolones on excessive use, they cause bone marrow toxicity and GI disturbances. So that's why when you are going to use any antibiotic, so you should be very careful. Okay, and my suggestion is use more toxic antibiotic or use more broad spectrum antibiotic only if the infection is severe. Okay, here it is clearly mentioned. Sorry, yeah, here you can see. Yeah. Use more toxic antibiotic only if the infection is severe. Only in case of severe infections, you are supposed to use more toxic antibiotic. More toxic antibiotic. Okay, because they will have serious adverse effects. So tetracyclines may cause damage to the fetus. Okay, and aminoglycosides may cause damage to the kidney, and fluoroquinolones may damage your bone marrow. So that's why use these antibiotics only if the infection is severe. So that is the eighth point you have to remember, that is risk of toxicity. Ninth point is antibiotic combination. This is also very important. See, routine and simultaneous use of two or more antibiotics or antimicrobial agents is not recommended. So don't use two antibiotics in combination, because when you use two antibiotics in combination, their effectiveness will increase, I agree, but simultaneously their side effects will add up. Their side effects will add up. Okay. So, however, in case of certain situations or circumstances, you have to use antibiotics in combination. Only certain circumstances use antibiotic in combinations. So let me quote what are those circumstances where antibiotics are used in combination. That is to achieve additive or synergistic effect against a single organism. Okay, means if one organism is not killed by a particular antibiotic, okay, so then you have to use two antibiotics so that the combined effect will be more than the individual effect. Okay, that is what we call it as synergism. Okay, so in synergism you have two things. One is additive effect and potentiation. Additive effect means both the drugs will work in the same direction. Okay, and both the drugs will just add up. Okay, the effects will just add up inside in additive effect. And in potentiation, one drug will increase the action of other drug. Okay. So for example, aspirin and paracetamol, they work in the same direction. Their effects will just add up. That is synergism. Okay. And potentiation means levodopa and carbidopa. Okay. Carbidopa will increase the entry of levodopa in the brain. Carbidopa will prevent the peripheral decarboxylation of or peripheral inactivation of levodopa. That's why more levodopa can enter into the brain, and that is very beneficial in Parkinsonism. Okay, so that's why. So this kind of, if there is a chance that two antibiotics will cause synergism or additive effect, okay, then or potentiation, then you can use. Okay, let me quote some example. You can see here penicillin and streptomycin. These two drugs, they are used in bacterial endocarditis due to streptococci. Okay, so an infection of your endocardium layer of the heart will be affected, and that it is caused by a microorganism that is called bacteria streptococci, and that is called bacterial endocarditis. Endocardium layer, inner layer of the heart will be affected, and in that case only penicillin is not useful. You have to combine penicillin and streptomycin, and here you can see another combination, rifampin, piscin and tetracycline, brucellosis. Brucellosis is also a bacterial infection that is mainly seen in individuals who are using this dairy products. This will be transmitted from milk and other dairy products, and there will be a severe muscle pain, there will be a severe lethargy, there will be a severe headache, there will be a severe high fever, etc. So that in that infections, you can use rifampicin and tetracycline. Okay, that is one reason. And antibiotics are used in combination in case of mixed infection, when the infection is not of single microorganism, when the infection is comprised of multiple microorganisms, when the infection is due to many microorganisms. Okay, so for example, peritonitis, it involves both gram positive and gram negative infection. Means this is an infection in which your peritoneal cavity, okay, your peritoneal cavity, that is stomach cavity, will be severely inflamed. Okay, so severe swelling of your peritoneal cavity of your abdomen. So in that condition, you have to use both antibiotics, penicillin and aminoglycosides, because this peritonitis is a mixed infection. It is a combination of gram positive and gram negative infection. Okay, and antibiotics are used in combination to decrease the adverse drug reaction. If you want to reduce the adverse effect, definitely you can use in combination, because when antibiotics are used in combination, you can reduce the dose of individual antibiotic. Okay, so instead of using 500 mg of a single antibiotic, use 250 mg of one antibiotic and 250 mg of other antibiotic. When you reduce the dose of individual antibiotic, and when you reduce the dose of a single when you reduce the dose of two antibiotics, and when they are used in combination, definitely the side effects will also be decreased. Okay, so that is nothing but to decrease adverse reaction. D is when the infection is severe and the body defense is poor. Okay, so for example, in case of immunocompromised patient, HIV patients, okay, or in case of malnourished patient, those who do not have enough nourishment, those who doesn't get enough proteins or nutrients through the diet, chronic alcoholics or patients with kidney failure, HIV patients, immunocompromised patients. So what happens when your immune system is poor? Definitely your body will have a scope for multiple microorganisms. You may have fungal infection, you may have protozoal infection, you may have TB, you may have bacterial infection, you may have viral infection, like that, you may have multiple infections. So in those circumstances, definitely you can use antibiotics in combination, because diagnosis becomes quite difficult. Okay, because when the infection is severe and when the symptoms are severe, so physicians don't waste their time in diagnosing the problem. Instead, they will give a broad spectrum antibiotic in combination. Okay, so tetracyclines and aminoglycosides can be given in combination, so that when the infections are multiple due to weak immune system, in case of malnourished patient, chronic alcoholics and patients with chronic renal failure, and even HIV or immunocompromised patients or TB patients, definitely that combination of antibiotics will be very, very beneficial. Okay. And lastly, for reducing the chance of super infection, that is the problem. So super infection is nothing but, I told you, here you can see, it is also called as supra infection. So refers to the development of new infection that causes during chemotherapy of primary infection. Suppose you have some streptococcal infection. For that you have used tetracycline. And when you use tetracycline continuously for 1 month, your streptococcal infection will be cured. But along with that, the tetracycline, as it is having a capacity or a scope or a spectrum to act on multiple microorganisms, its spectrum is very broad. Along with killing streptococci, it will also kill your lactobacillus, which is very, very friendly microorganism. Like that, there are many friendly microorganisms. Okay, so tetracycline or broad spectrum antibiotics will kill the dangerous one, and they will also kill the friendly bacteria. And that destruction of that friendly bacteria or non-pathogenic bacteria in the GIT will give the scope for multiple infections, because that friendly bacteria is used to prevent many infections. Okay, they are part of our defense mechanism. But when you use broad spectrum antibiotic, and when you kill many microorganisms, okay, dangerous one will be killed and friendly one will be killed, and that will give scope for many infections. Okay, so you can see here super infection is common with antibiotics such as tetracyclines, chloramphenicol, ampicillin, and cephalosporins. Okay, but if the case becomes compulsory, okay, when tetracyclines has to be used continuously, okay, and you know that tetracyclines will kill will kill your friendly bacteria, and one of the major problem with tetracycline is it will give space for fungus. Okay, so on prolonged usage it will cause fungal infection, because it will kill your friendly bacteria and it will allow the fungus to enter. Earlier our friendly bacteria used to take care of fungus, but when you use tetracyclines continuously, tetracyclines will kill the fungus, and it will give the scope for fungal infection. Sorry, it will kill the bacteria which are effective on fungus. Bacteria which are going to destroy fungus, that friendly bacteria will be killed by tetracyclines. Okay, and definitely there will be a scope for fungal infection. That's why what we have to do to prevent fungal infection, you do one thing. You when tetracyclines are used for long-term therapy, you combine tetracyclines with antifungal agent. You give fluconazole. You give fluconazole or clotrimazole along with I mean to say that tetracycline. Okay, so definitely the patient will not have fungal infection. The patient will not have fungal infection because you are giving antifungal drugs along with tetracycline. Okay, so that is how you can prevent super infection. Okay, so destruction of, here you can see even the definition: destruction of normal non-pathogenic bacterial flora, creating bacterial vacuum for growth. Okay, you are creating fungus infection to develop. Okay, so you are allowing fungus to develop in your GIT. Okay, so that when you use antifungal drug, definitely you even that fungus will not be grown because of that antifungal agent. So tetracycline may kill some of your friendly bacteria, but that fungal growth will not occur because you are taking antifungal drug along with tetracycline. That's why that new infection, which we call it as supra or super infection, that can be reduced. Okay, by using this combination of antibiotics. Okay, so I will stop now. So please watch the video and let me know if you have any doubts. Okay.